Chris Bumstead announced he will be competing at the Prague Pro in 3 weeks in open bodybuilding, and to quote him from his latest Instagram post, "One more run just for fun, giving the people what they want." As we all know, he announced his retirement on stage at the Olympia a couple of weeks ago after winning his 6th Classic Olympia title in a row. I guess he's doing this for himself too. While he's in contest shape, why not answer the question that's been on everybody's mind for so many years now? What makes this show even more interesting is that at the Prague Pro, one of the best open bodybuilders in the world will be waiting for him. Martin Fitzwater, a first call-out athlete from this year's Olympia and the 4th place finisher. Honestly, if you ask me, this will be even more interesting than the Olympia itself, and I believe many of you feel the same. So in today's video, we're going to compare Chris and Martin to see what we can expect from this clash in 3 weeks in Prague. Of course, Chris will look much different in open. He doesn't have time to put on size, but he will fill out a lot, I'm sure. By the way, if you want to see a Photoshop prediction for Chris Bumstead in open, get this video to 1000 likes and you're on. So 2024 Olympia Classic Physique Chris Bumstead versus 2024 Olympia Martin Fitzwater. Very importantly, there's a reason we have different divisions, so Martin will probably win the majority of the poses. However, what I want to see are the poses where C-Bum has realistic chances to be competitive against open competitors. And yes, I have all 8 open mandatories for Chris as well, so don't worry about it. Front double biceps. This will be difficult to judge because even though both of them look nice and aesthetic with small waist and vacuums, there's a huge difference in their statures. Chris is almost as tall as Andrew Jack, the tallest open competitor nowadays, while Martin is a shorter guy somewhere between Hadi Choopan and Nick Walker. It's true that overall height seems to be more rewarded nowadays in open, especially with Samson and Andrew in the past few years, but it's also true that 3 out of the top 4 at this year's Olympia were shorter guys in Hadi, Derek and Martin, so considering Martin will bring a similar physique to Prague, Chris needs to make sure he comes in as full as possible without sacrificing too much dryness, as Martin will most probably be peeled to the bone too. Being more compact always helps with overall thickness and muscularity, as it's easier to fill out a smaller frame. So looking at these two, sure, C-Bum looks statuesque for classic, and that's my point. How will the judges judge this? Chris will look more beautiful in probably every pose, I don't even question that. But how are they going to judge this if he gives up too much size? We've all seen what happened with Patrick Moore this year. I'm sure he'll be interested in this. I would be if I were in his place. Back to the comparison, Martin dominates the limbs with overall size too much here. Despite not having the best arms, Chris is not a powerhouse in this department either. It will be hard for C-Bum to get something out of this pose against Martin in my opinion, but I hope he proves me wrong. Front lat spread. This is another story because this is a weaker pose for Martin, arguably his weakest, and for Chris it's probably his best despite not being a mandatory in classic. I always thought an open version of C-Bum could even dethrone the king of the front lat spread, Dorian Yates himself. C-Bum is that good. He's got a wide frame, incredible flaring lats, an incredible X-frame, and he also pulls a vacuum in this pose, which is the finest touch you can add since nobody tries to do this anymore. Martin kind of looks like he's trying it as well here, but that's the most you will see from anybody these days. Martin's structure is not suited for this pose. He's got a narrower structure and short, thick arms, which is the worst combination for the front lat spread. I believe Chris is winning this pose as he is here, and he will not have any problems winning it in Prague against Martin. Side chest pose. This will be interesting to see. A strong pose for both. Martin exhibits incredible thickness and fullness everywhere, while C-Bum presents a more elegant execution with more cuts through the side leg and more detail in the chest. Even though he is a classic competitor, he presents more than decent overall thickness here. He actually posted a physique update on his Instagram when he was first hinting at doing an open show, and we can see that Chris has the potential to fill out nicely. He lost some of those fine details, but I think he can be very competitive in the open looking like this. I can see him challenging Martin in this pose, even though it's one of Martin's more impressive ones. What do you guys think? Now, if it was debatable until now, from the back, Chris will be in trouble against Martin. What Martin brings to the table here is not something you can manage in a few weeks as a classic physique competitor. The only area where Chris can expose him is lat width, where we all know Martin needs to improve. But aside from that, Martin has back thickness and especially the lower body. Martin has probably the most complete lower body from the back nowadays, together with Nick Walker. Martin's hamstrings will expose C-Bum big time, and we all know how important this aspect has become nowadays in bodybuilding. Now I'm sure Chris will look impressive in this pose, but I don't think he can beat Martin in Prague. Next is the back lat spread, and I got this pose from C-Bum's finals routine from 2023 when he hit all 8 mandatories. Just like in the back double, Chris doesn't seem to have the mass necessary to be competitive from the back against a guy like Martin. Again, Martin needs more width, but C-Bum needs much more than that when it comes to overall thickness. Not to mention that Martin wins in overall detail too, and C-Bum will have to be even softer in open to be able to achieve the fullness necessary. So no, C-Bum will not beat Martin in the back poses in my opinion. Side triceps. This is again from 2023 for C-Bum. He didn't hit these last 2 poses in 2024. Now he opted for this front triceps stance, and we know the story, but let's give him a pass this time. And considering how good his side leg is in the side chest, I'm sure he will look even better with the side stance. His triceps are also pretty good, and considering how good his chest and midsection look, combined with the fact that he already looks pretty good from the side, I think C-Bum can do well in this pose. Now sure, Martin is strong too, he's thick, conditioned and has a powerful triceps, but C-Bum can compensate with his stature just like in the side chest. Who do you guys have as the favorite for the side triceps between these two? Next is the abs and thighs, and even though this is a signature pose for C-Bum, let's be real, his abs were never too defined, whereas Martin excels in this department despite his abs not looking very pretty. Also, when it comes to the lower body, Martin is the clear favorite, having some of the best quads in the world today. Of course, the bum can always go for the vacuum, and the judges said it is valid for the abs and thighs, but I still think overall Martin will win this pose against C-Bum. C-Bum has the better silhouette indeed, but Martin is way more polished and unlikely to lose this pose in my opinion. The most muscular pose is a very powerful one for Martin. Tyler Mannion said he beat Nick Walker with this crab variation, so I don't see what Chris can hope for against that. Of course, Chris's flow is infinitely better than Nick's, but the most muscular is about thickness and overall size, where Nick is probably the best in the world. Anyway, this is not about him. Chris looks great in the most muscular pose if you ask me, so even though he will probably lose to Martin here, it's not going to be a blowout. Chris will stay in the game with this pose, especially if he fills out more. Now overall there are certain poses like the back shots, the abs and thighs, and the most muscular where Chris Bumstead will definitely struggle against Martin Fitzwater, but in the remaining 4 poses I think he is competitive. That's half the poses, so who knows, maybe Martin doesn't come in at 100% and Chris can pull the upset. What if Chris wins this show and officially gets the open qualification? What about then? Of course, he said he will retire after this. He's basically retired and he's doing this show for fun. But if he beats a first call-out guy from the Olympia, will C-Bum be able to resist not trying the Olympia as well? If there's no health issue, we all want to see that, but more importantly, we want to see him healthy and happy. I pray to God he takes the best decision for himself and his loved ones. Don't forget to get this video to 1000 likes if you want to see my Photoshop prediction for C-Bum. Also, subscribe for more videos like this. See you next time.